Greetings and salutations, guys. I am going to review Dune Part 2 today, the much anticipated sequel. But just getting this out front, it was mildly anticipated by me. I grew up with Dune as a big sort of pop culture blind spot. We all have them for whatever reason. I never read the books. I had never seen the David Lynch movie. I never saw the sci-fi miniseries. I didn't know Dune at all until the movie came out in 2021. And I liked it, but I didn't love it. Like, I thought it was beautiful to look at, and I saw it in IMAX, and I thought it was a great experience seeing in IMAX, but I also thought it, kind of dragged, and by the time it ended, I kind of was like, this isn't really holding my interest that much. Like, I thought it was worth seeing, but I didn't love it, and I have to say, when I rewatched it at home this week, because this sequel was coming out, it didn't work for me at all. It really made me sleepy. There's something about the movie, just like the vibe of it, the feel, a lot of quiet talking. It makes me sleepy. It's just, I feel bad because I have a lot of friends and people I know who love Dune, and I just was like, hey, it's okay, but I'm not on that level with it. So I went into this one hopeful though, because I'd heard all the raves about it. This is a very good movie. And again, I'm not like, oh my God, it's amazing. One of the best sci-fi movies I've ever seen. But I really enjoyed it. I'll have a couple reservations I'll talk about, but for the most part, I thought, it is even more than the first one. I don't want to repeat what I said the first one because it brings everything up. Everything goes up a level as far as what they're delivering here and how this is I truly do think this is like a cinematic event, and it is an epic, and it delivers on everything you want sort of a sci-fi epic to be. Even though there's some things I wish maybe were a little tweaked differently. I also have to say up front here, I'm going to massacre so many Dune names. I have a list here of, all the character names and whatnot. And it's funny because I'm surrounded by all, this stuff of things I love. And I know a lot of stupid, silly names of characters from a lot of made-up worlds that I realize if you say them apart from it, it's like, oh, that's a silly name. But when it's something you don't know that well, I'm looking at this, I'm like, I'm never going to get any of these names right. So please feel free to rake me over the coals for all the names I massacre, and I apologize. But Dune Part 2 picks up pretty much right where the first one left off. It seems like a tiny bit of time has passed, but you've got Paul Atreides, and by the way, I think it's very funny, all these strange sci-fi names, but there's Paul and his mom, Jessica. But Paul and Jessica are now with the Fremen. I hope I said that one right. And they're trying to, kind of learn their ways. And while they're also dealing with this idea of this prophecy about who Paul is, that he is the one. They don't say the chosen one here. They say the one, Neo style. And is that real or not? And the idea that Paul himself is pretty skeptical that is actually a thing. But other people are all in on that. All other people are saying, oh no, this is definitely what is happening here. The movie does deal, and I am curious how the book reads compared to the movie, because there's no getting around the fact that this is sort of screaming like white savior, because all the Fremen are portrayed by people of color. And then you've got Timothée Chalamet coming in here as the guy who's supposed to like save them all. The movie, to its credit, does kind of address that, and the idea of, he articulates that it doesn't make sense that someone who's like an outsider is supposed to be like the ultimate version of them. I wonder if that was changed to kind of modernize it. I wouldn't be shocked, but I was glad to at least have that addressed and be a part of the narrative. And then meanwhile, the fact that as far as everyone else is concerned, they think Paul and Jessica are dead. They think that they've wiped out this entire family. And that's important not only because it could be a threat to them, but because the Emperor was in on this betrayal. And he wants to keep that a secret. The Emperor played by Christopher freaking Walken, which is awesome. And there you go. As we have kind of our big new villains here, which is Walken has the Emperor, and then Austin Butler playing this other nephew. This is a name, guys. Fade Rotha Harkonnen. Am I even saying Harkonnen right? Who knows? I'm going to call him Austin Butler. I'm going to call him Elvis. That's what I'll do. He is playing this sort of other nephew, the brother of Bautista's character, who is, kind of this rising threat through it. Strange thing about this movie, and I know that they took one book and they split it into two movies, but it does make it a little strange that our main villains in the first film, which was the Baron, Stellan Skarsgård, and Bautista's character, are in this movie, and they have plenty of screen time. but it still kind of seems like they're pushed to the side by these new villains. And I guess in the book, it would have been like, hey, you would have met all these characters in one book. Just a strange thing of the way they, they got split, but what can you do? This movie, as I said earlier, it really is epic in feel. I didn't get to see it in IMAX at the screening I went to, but I saw it at Dolby, like at the Dolby offices, where obviously the sound is amazing. And I really was just like, presentation wise, and the picture looked great. And it just, oh my God, like technically, first of all, it's phenomenal. And I do say, try to see this theater. If you try to see this movie if you can't see it on IMAX, at least go to a theater with kick-ass sound, because I was like kind of blown away just by the sound design. It is so fantastic. And so technically it's amazing, but also I just think like visually, just everything it's delivering, is so epic, is so, this fully realized world. And yes, the first movie did certainly do that as well. But I think this one, especially because we're going to different worlds here, we're meeting new characters, and it kind of feels more filled in. It's funny because the movie was introduced by someone from the studio, I believe, who said a lot more happens in this movie, which is true. There's just a lot more events, a lot more bouncing around, a lot more characters, and sort of the dynamics there. And in a way that made me appreciate it more and kind of get more immersed in this. The first movie I liked the first half to an extent, but it did kind of start to lose me in the second half. This one I thought was just more interesting throughout. There are still lulls to me. It is a funny thing. This is just the approach of the movie. I think it seems to be like something that Denis Villeneuve maybe just like he likes, which is a lot of quiet talking and then loud. People get either very quiet or very loud. So it is kind of a sensory. It can get a little strange. And there are some moments that I was a little detached from. And for a while, the movie was still keeping me at an emotional distance. I was like, okay, this is an interesting story, and I like everything we're learning here about the Fremen and their society, and this, water is obviously going to be very important in a desert environment, but we get much more here about sort of the spiritual side of that, and what they believe you do with someone when they die, and I thought that was all great. But I still wasn't sort of emotionally connecting to the characters that much. But I'll say they got me by the end. It kind of snuck up on me, and I really appreciated that. That by the end of this movie, I was like emotionally engaged in a way I didn't expect to, and certainly wasn't by the first movie. It's funny because this movie's coming out shortly after Rebel Moon, and I think maybe it helps that Rebel Moon was such a, like, to me, dud of a kind of sci-fi space epic. And here we have it sort of done in such a better way. And I understand completely, of course, that Dune predates Star Wars as a book, and Star Wars owes so much to Dune. But because Star Wars set the template for movies, for cinema, for this type of thing, and Rebel Moon was so obviously chasing that and not working, you see Dune and it's like, oh no, they're delivering something really cool and their own vibe and their own feel. And even though it's still not like, I'm still not like fully all like, I love all this world, I could really appreciate it this time in a way I couldn't with the first one, at least as much beyond the visuals. The cast is great. It's such an amazing group of characters, actors and characters. And you have, people coming in. I mentioned Walken and Austin Butler. I want to say more about Butler in a second. Florence Pugh, who she kind of comes in and out of the movie. But there's some interesting things for her. And again, they've talked about a third movie that I think will probably happen. We'll see. But it seems like this movie's going to do very well. And there's some interesting groundwork laid with her character. And Butler is really fun in this movie. He very clearly decided, I'm going to speak like Stellan Skarsgård. I'm supposed to be his nephew. So I'm deciding I'm from that part of the galaxy, and that's what I will speak like. And does a very fun job with that. Obviously, because of Elvis, now we think of him as the sort of voice guy, the accent guy. But he delivers good Skarsgård here. It's funny because Skarsgård has so many actual sons in the industry who we know are known actors. And it feels like Austin Butler is going to like show up at Thanksgiving now and be like, I'm the bonus Skarsgård. So I really enjoyed him. I think Timothée Chalamet is very good, but there is something about the Paul character that doesn't fully engage me. There's, just the nature of the character. He's kind of stoic and observational, but I don't think he's that like, I don't know. I'm never like fully rooting for Paul. I'm kind of at a distance with him, but I really like Zendaya in this movie, and she's actually the one who kind of really got me emotionally by the end. She does a lot with silence, as she certainly has way more screen time and way more dialogue than the first one, but she has a lot of great moments that are just kind of observing, silence. Her character, you kind of, you can see the gears, you can kind of get the idea what she's thinking a lot. Sometimes with dialogue, but sometimes just watching her watching scenes unfold, and I really appreciated that. And Rebecca Ferguson has a cool role here. In the first movie, she was. I always love her, and it was a cool role in the first one, but this one, things really change for Jessica here as far as her significance and her role within the Fremen, and maybe the way she kind of even wants things to play out for her son. And what her motives are for that are interesting to observe. So yeah, I really thought the cast here, which is an incredibly impressive cast. Most of them got to do a lot of really fun stuff. And I actually really want to single out as well Josh Brolin, who takes a lot of. Austin Butler and Josh Brolin aren't in the first hour or so. But when they come in, I think they're actually two really important parts of the movie, both character-wise and performance-wise. Josh Brolin is very necessary, I think, here because everyone's very serious in these movies, and he's not Han Solo. I know they say like you need the Han Solo, but he is a lighter. I don't know. He gets to be less stoic than most of the other people in this movie. He he feels a little more relatable, and his character, he's gone through some shit from the first movie, and has this very warm relationship with Paul that we understood in the first movie. Him and Jason Momoa were a great part of the first movie. In fact, they were kind of my favorite part. So I'm really glad that Brolin is back in this film and kind of gets to put that energy into the movie that I think it really would be. If he wasn't in it, I think there'd be some parts that were just about Paul that would kind of bog down a little more. But he helped pop them all a lot. It's interesting that they're kind of being vague on, we'll see if we'll do a third or not, because the first movie to me ended on such a kind of note. And again, I know it's because they split the book, but I didn't think that they really nailed giving it its own satisfying conclusion as the end of a movie. Whereas this one, much better, bigger ending that also is like huge roadmap for another movie. But this time I'm like much more like, oh, I want to see what happens next. Like the end of the first one, I was like, okay, all right, I guess I'll check it out. But this one, now I'm much more intrigued by what's happening here. It's actually sort of like exciting, big, important changing events here. And now I'm intrigued to see where it goes next. So yeah, still, it's fine. I don't want to like undersell my own, admiration for this movie, just to say I'm not like a gushing Dune fan. I'm not Dune fan number one, but I am much more of a genuine Dune fan, I think, now than I was in the first movie. And actually now I do want to check it. I don't know why I never watched the David Lynch movie. I'm a huge David Lynch fan, but now I'm going to check it out. I am curious to see what it's like to even see this whole story told in one film. I think that'll be interesting to watch versus this, because there are some down points in this one too that I feel like maybe this could have been a great 3.5 hour. We've seen it been done recently a couple times movie. But now that we got the two movies, it's a big story. I don't know if it needed all this screen time, but the second one uses screen time, I think, much better. So those are my thoughts on Dune Part 2, which I certainly feels like it's about to make a lot of money and help Warner Brothers greenlight that third one. So we will find out shortly, I think. All right, guys, that's it for now. Thanks for checking out this review. Take care.